Howdy, Immortalium here. Today I'm reviewing Gundam The Origin, Volume 1, Activation. So before I start reviewing it, I better give my experience of the franchise. Basically, I've only seen one series of Gundam, one anime series, and I've never read anything else about Gundam, so the only experience I had preceding this was Gundam Seed. Now, Gundam Seed is generally hailed as one of the best, Gundam iterations. And in fairness, I enjoyed it. I wasn't in love with it, but I enjoyed it, and it got my interest in the franchise. So, I decided, that I wanted to read the original, particularly because of the beautiful hardcover and everything. So, one thing, though, that struck me when I began reading this, was its similarities to Gundam Seed. Okay, so basically, I'll just give you a quick kind of summary of the story. Basically, a war has broken out between, Earth, which I think is called the Federation, and Zeon, which is a colony that Earth had established. It was the furthest colony away from Earth. They declared independence and they began a war. And in this war, in the first month of fighting, half of humanity's total population was wiped out. Now, I do find that a little hard to imagine, although it becomes a bit easier to see when you take a look at this, for instance. You can see a colony crashing into a city on Earth, so that's massive destruction. So, yeah, and basically it opens up with Zeon forces infiltrating this this colony, looking for intelligence on enemy weaponry and mobile suit development, and that's the beginning of the story. Now, if any of you have seen Gundam Seed, you'll notice that that's extremely similar to Gundam Seed. Gundam Seed also opens up with the declaration of war, the kind of a a phony war, in a sense, in that they're not fighting for a long period of time, and then an infiltration into a colony in search of enemy tech, which kind of struck me. And throughout the book, while there are significant differences, the overall plot is very similar to Gundam Seed, so that kind of surprised me. Now, Gundam Seed was released after even the manga version of this, of Origin, so it's Gundam Seed's issue that it's so similar, but whatever. So first of all, what do I think of the story? First of all, the story is really good, even though I've seen the similar version of Gundam Seed. I prefer this version of the story so far for a couple of reasons. First reason is there's a real sense of war in this. In the Gundam Seed, even though, okay, you get to see, like, all the fighting, the tech mobile suits fighting each other and blowing stuff up and everything, there's a more of an impact in this because of the fact that we actually see something that, is quite often not touched upon, and that is civilians getting caught in crossfire or, AoE attacks and all that jazz. There's a few bits in it where, mass areas of civilians are just completely wiped out, and we see the destruction, the aftermath. And what I thought of, actually, I remember, I think it was about 100 pages in, or maybe it was 150 pages in, I realized this manga is basically a war movie in space. It's one of those war movies that, you get to know the characters, they're fighting, but there's all this destruction, and basically it's an anti-war kind of thing, even though it's about war, and it just happens to be set in space. So, that impressed me a lot, because I got that sense, far stronger in this than I ever did in Gundam Seed. So, kudos to, what's his name, Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, because he really got that sense of, complete destruction and annihilation everywhere. You know, down to a T. Characters. First of all, I should point out, okay, the main character is, I'm just trying to recall his name now. Amuro? Is that it? Yeah, Amuro. And he's an interesting character. First of all, from a character design point of view, you know, I prefer Kira Yamato, that was the lead character in Gundam Seed, as a character design. But as a character, you know, I prefer Amuro. Why? Because in Gundam Seed, Kira Yamato was basically that kind of shonen hero who was, you know, oh, I have to save everything, I have to take care of everything. Now, in the end, it actually kind of did make him a bit interesting because he was taking on all these pressures that he shouldn't have been taking on, and he was steadily getting more and more exhausted, more and more tired. You know, that's quite interesting. But I prefer Amuro. Why? Because for one, he's simply caught up in it. He's just simply how can I describe it? It's not that he's out for himself, but he's not willing to put himself in jeopardy for about anyone. You know, there's a bit in here where he actually refuses to take on a mission simply because of the fact that the commander who had just given him the mission had insulted him previously. You know, that's, you know, okay, maybe that makes him seem like a jerk, but I kind of like that because it gives him a sense of originality that I just don't see in many other shonen heroes or shonen protagonists. So I like that. The only thing about him that kind of throws me off so far is, okay, I can get why he can pilot Gundam, because of the fact that he had previously been examining its specs, its you know, instructions on how to use it, etc., etc. So I appreciate that. What I don't get is why he is allowed, you know, he remains the pilot of it. In Gundam Seed, Kira Yamato was, it's been a while since I've seen that series, but he was part of, you know, genetic alteration that all the colonists had been done, and, you know, that was the enemy. And he was the only one who could pilot the Gundam because of the fact that its operating system was so utterly complicated that no one else could, you know, operate it. He was the only one in all of the ship to be able to operate it. In this, as far as, you know, I can tell, there's practically no reason it has to be specifically him. All it is that he managed to be able to save it, and now he seems to be the one to operate it. There's been no mention of complex operating systems or anything. So that's kind of, I don't know, maybe they might explain that later, but considering that this packs in 2 volumes worth, I would have expected an answer, you know, sooner. What else? Okay, other characters, side characters, you know, they're interesting. You know, I'm liking them. They're great for the sense of, you know, epicness, scale, the war movie feeling, as well as, you know, being, you know, seeing the suffering through their eyes as well. But, you know, none of them have really stood out to me so far. Like, ironically, whereas in most other shonens, the main character is the least interesting and everyone around him is more interesting. In this, I would argue that the lead character is more interesting than any of his friends or anything. So, you know, that's another kind of sense of originality, just, you know, where it isn't assisted though, because of the fact that, you know, it's only one character truly that's interesting, whereas the people around him are more kind of there to supplement him. Not that it, you know, hurts the manga too much, because it actually works well still, but, you know, I haven't really seen too much, you know, to get me interested in any of the other characters, simply Amuro. The enemy, basically the enemy are, it was Zeon, wasn't it? Yeah, the Principality of Zeon. So basically, they're at war with the Federation of Earth, and in fairness now, the lead guy, what was it, the Red Comet, he's quite interesting, alright. Now, one thing that also surprised me was that we get a look at his face at one point in this, which we didn't see in Gundam Seed until like much later. Just in case, it's not the same character, it's just there's always a character in each series that has that mask, you know. So, and in fairness now, he's kind of interesting. The only thing is I'm not sure the significance of the face. I mean, it's given a big panel and everything, so I don't know. We might find out later. What else to discuss? The artwork. First of all, the artwork has this soft touch to it, and this great sense of composition. I'll just show you. Plus it also assists that vertical, they printed this on gloss paper, you know, like what they do with normal graphic novels. Which is great, you know, because it gives it, you know, like it makes the white pure white, it makes the black pure black, etc, etc. So that is really nice, and the artwork is really beautiful, I think. I'll just show you, particularly stuff like the space stations. Now, one other thing that's great about this edition is the fact that you get color pages. Now, you might have noticed earlier that there was a color page. I'll just show you some other examples of the color pages. Now, you get them every so often throughout the book, so, you know, that's nice. Anything else to discuss? The essays, I guess. In this book, you also get 3 essays at the back. Now, they're actually quite an interesting read. Basically, the first one, one thing that also actually threw me off is the fact that, okay, I just finished reading it and I was going, you know, right to left, but then you go over and it's basically I realized that you were supposed to start the essays at the back. So, you know, I thought Vertical could have handled that a little better, like they did in, like Yen Press did in With the Light. Anyway, the first one is actually a very long one, and it's written by a guy called Ryusuke Hikawa, who's an anime critic, talking about the manga, its comparison to the anime, the changes between it and the anime, etc, etc. So that was actually very interesting because, you know, I have yet to see the original anime. I don't know the differences, but already it's, from the differences he's described, you know, it's very interesting. The next one, not too interesting. It's written by a guy called Shinichiro Inoue, who's the president of Kadokawa Shoten Publishing. All he discusses really is just, you know how you know, they got him to write this manga, how they got him to draw this manga, how they got him to, how they actually set up a whole magazine, you know, called Gundam Ace in order to, you know, show this off. And a lot of people were worried because it's only one property. And finally, this one is very interesting as well, although I wouldn't describe it as insulting, but, you know, you can tell this guy isn't keen on otaku. It's by Hideaki Anno, who is, you know, the guy who created Evangelion. Now, I have heard that he isn't, you know, he's not keen on otaku, and he doesn't like the fact that he's contributed to these, you know, otaku and all that. It's interesting still to hear, to read, though. It's just, you know, don't take it to heart, I guess, because it does hurt a little. And besides that, it's basically, yeah, I really loved it. It's got this great sense of scale, it's got this great sense of art, it's got this great sense of, well, the lead character and the opposing character. And do I recommend it? Yes, I do. So, yeah, that's my review. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.